Amazing. So I guess I'll start with saying, hi everybody, I'm Philippa, founder of Workout and Wind Down, and I thought it'd be really good to introduce you to Sophie at FidlLeaf. She's like a wellness guru and everything that you need to know about personal well-being, and she can answer all of your questions. So do you want to do a little intro, Sophie?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not sure I would say wellness guru. I think when people think of wellness guru, they think of yoga and meditation and green smoothies, which is potentially all three of those things are not really my bag. But certainly, I definitely
Personal development.
yes, I'm very passionate about well-being in the sense of personal development. So working on yourself, growing, putting effort into yourself, doing the things that you love that will fulfill you, to improve your well-being. So yeah, that's my bag, definitely.
Perfect. Great. So I guess it's like, why do you think it's important to look after our personal well-being?
Mm-hmm. Oh, so
Yeah.
I would say the reason why, yeah, big question to kick off with. So I would say that the reason why personal well-being is important is because it is the foundation. You are the foundation of everything that comes from you. So if you can put effort into yourself personally, and that's about looking after yourself, not just in terms of health and fitness, but in a more holistic way. So looking after yourself and the things that fill you up, that light you up, that give you passion, looking after things like the way you talk to yourself. Obviously we're going to talk about burnout a little bit today, but if you can put that energy into yourself and prioritize yourself in that sense, then that gives you a solid foundation from which to build either your working career or whatever you do for other people. I think it's kind of that standard thing that they say on the aeroplane: put your gas mask on before you
help others.
Yeah.
And
that's
like you can't function on like an uncharged battery. I guess it's that charge, isn't it, of yourself before doing anything for others.
And most people don't put as much into themselves as they put into either work or others or other commitments. And that is the real key, is finding that, not necessarily balance, whatever the balance is right for you, but it's about putting that energy into yourself, definitely.
And it's not in like a selfish way at all, is it? It's kind of like it's going to help you, but it's benefiting yourself and everyone around you, or the job that you're doing, isn't it? It's not like you're being so selfish or now just thinking about yourself and only you. It's definitely a bigger package, I would say, right?
You hit it with that, because actually a lot of people that I speak to that do have this ability to put more energy into themselves, they almost describe themselves as selfish.
Right.
And it's not selfish, not in a bad way, it's in a good way, because then they have more energy to do other things. But yeah, it is funny that it can be thought, and people can almost get a guilt sometimes.
I know I do sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I'm no, I don't want to go out, or no, I don't want to do X, Y, Z. It's because I want to focus on myself or something. And it's that saying no. And I think a lot of us would probably resonate with that, isn't it? By saying, oh, I don't ever want to say no. I always want to have an answer and a way around things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Amazing. So I guess it's like, obviously today we're talking mainly about burnout. So I don't know, do you want to just tell us, maybe give a brief explanation of what burnout is? Just give a little intro, just so people can understand what this whole burnout saying is.
And it's definitely timely. I feel like I've read the word burnout so much more in this last year, which is interesting, because I think a lot of people would think, if I'm working from home, I'll be less burnt out because I won't be doing the commute and this, that and the other. You almost feel like you would have more time for yourself. Burnout is on the rise. That's probably why I'm reading it everywhere. And so burnout is a form of stress, and it's it's when we are getting to a stage where we are potentially overwhelmed with what we have to do, or we're lacking in energy, we're running out of steam, and we can't perhaps spin as many plates as we used to. And you can kind of get different levels of it. So you can get like a real subtle burnout creeping in, and people might even experience this in one day if they have a particularly stressful day, and you know, you've got to think about this and that and a million different things, and you can have almost like a mini burnout that day. And then it can get to a stage where it gets really serious, and potentially somebody could be signed off work, or you know, go end up with occupational health or something like that. So yeah, it's got a real big range on it.
So if unchecked, it can really accelerate, I guess, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
So I guess I've got a couple of questions written down just to kind of prompt me as well. So if you think that you're going into that burnout phase, or you've had a real like struggle day, what are the signs of how to kind of stop you from going into that? Can you if you feel like it's a bad day, can you just briefly stop it, or is it something that is a long preventative thing?
I think it's something to be aware of, particularly thinking about, gosh, I'm so bright, I don't know why. My light, let me try and fix my light. I think especially if you are having a particularly stressful time at work, then maybe you'll be slightly more aware of it, that there's going to be potential for you to start to burn out. But I also think that if you're just having one of those days, so I can do a good explanation of this, because I've had one of those days today where I've had a huge list of things to do. I've had to give a workshop this morning, then my energy has had to switch to a deadline that I had for something, and then this luckily is relaxing and nice to be doing. But for me, what I will do is recognize, do you know what, I've got so much on that day, I need to lighten the load the next day, and I need to make sure that tomorrow I don't have deadlines and pressures, because for me, I know that I need to be a bit more creative, and that my energy will be in the right place for that tomorrow. So if you can, just time management and managing your diary will make a real big difference. And sometimes we have no choice, we have to have a crazy day. But some of the things to be conscious of that can get in the way, or for you to spot, to try and think, is this becoming unhealthy for me now, is if you are in a place where you are starting to lose focus and lose concentration. So that could be that you're constantly going onto your phone to procrastinate about not doing what you should be doing, or you're looking for excuses to lose focus, or if you just can't hold focus. That's one thing. If your problem solving suddenly gets slower, so let's say a task that would have been easy for you the day before, a couple of weeks before, suddenly it's like wading through fog, and you can't do it, and that's when you can very often get frustrated. And also if your intuition starts to go as well, and that could be intuition around people. So for example, if you would normally notice if your partner was upset, but you've missed thing. So when you start to lose that intuitive ability, quite often it's because we've gone into this tunnel vision of, you know, you're
out, really.
You're trying to cope, and the way that your kind of body and your thoughts and your mind is coping is by blocking other things out, and left there for a long period of time, that's not a great place to be.
Great. I feel like I've definitely been in that burnt out phase once or twice before, and I think it's really interesting discussing it and actually relating it back to certain times in my like previous jobs or anything like that. Actually, it really hones in on, I felt like that at that, like this shoot I had or something. I was like, such tunnel vision of I must get, you know, the shoot out, and nothing else around me was making sense. And it just, at the time, I just didn't know that that was burnout. But actually now you've described it, it definitely feels like I've been there.
Yeah, and it might not be something that you think, I don't need to call in sick, you know, I can do it. But how did it then potentially stunt your creativity? Or did you miss something that if you were on it, you would have been aware of?
Yeah.
Or did things go slower, or did mistakes happen? That kind
frustrated or things like that, where you're like, oh, why doesn't this want to go like the way I normally do it or whatever, you know? No, it's really interesting. I guess it's kind of like, yeah, you kind of answered my question of like, that's how you catch it, isn't it, before it gets bad. It's definitely like looking at those early signs and thinking, oh God, okay, I'm feeling a little bit fuzzy here. I'm feeling a little bit sluggish and stuck. Maybe now tomorrow I'm going to ease off my day, or, you know, block in some me time, or maybe not log on to work at like 7 a.m. Give yourself that hour in the morning to you. Do a workout, meditate, you know, journal, something for you maybe before you start your busy day that actually, you know, sometimes you can't, but you know, most of the time you're logging on because it's a habit, or you know, that you've just always gone to work earlier than you needed to or whatever. I think it's now more than ever, working from home, I think that time management and slotting in you time is so important.
Yeah, it is, because if you are feeling quite burnt out, and if you are feeling like I've got a lot of pressure and you've got this, that and the other to do, if you can go to just the simple tasks that you can do that don't require a huge amount of problem solving ability or creative, you know, if you can do the admin, let's say, that will just tide you over, make you feel like you've achieved something, but not, you know, they're not too taxing, then you should do that, and you should almost save the creative stuff for when you have been able to take that time for yourself. You'll have far more energy for it. But really, it's really interesting, and it's so subtle. I'm much more interested in the subtle burnout than, you know, and I'm not a therapist, or I'm not a psychologist, so I can't necessarily speak for when it gets super serious, but it is the subtle side of it that really interests me, because that is what makes the difference between when you're okay and then when you're on it. When you recognize and do something about it, and you will notice that kind of like level up in your performance, really.
Those subtle changes, and then you think, oh, okay, it's only small, but no, actually they're probably bigger than you think, in the sense, because it's taking you towards that burnt out stage. So actually take note of those subtle differences and listen to them, and listen to your body and how it's reacting, because actually if you listen to those now, you can catch it early without going into that phase.
Exactly.
Love that. Great.
I think as well, it's one of those things that people who are what I call high performers, where they've got to a stage sometimes in life, or just sometimes in their work, where they've been achieving for a long time, they've probably got to that point where they have recognized this. And you almost see a difference between successful people who are still working 24 hours and still, you know, neglecting themselves, and then you get that level above that where that person has actually recognized. I mean, I could give an example, would be Ariana Huffington, if anybody knows who she is. She started the Huffington Post. She's got a kind of like wellness website called Thrive, I believe it's called. And she had a moment where she was so burnt out, she actually collapsed at her desk, and she hit her head. And she had all these scans. She thought she might have had a brain tumor or something. And the doctor basically said, you're tired, you're burnt out, that's why you collapsed.
Oh God,
huge wake up call for her. But it's one of those things of recognizing that you will get better performance out of yourself once you've gone past that stage of driving yourself into burnout, and when you go to the stage of, I'm actually going to take a rest tomorrow, and I'll be better because of it.
It's quite a revelation, actually, to step back and think, no, I do need to take me time. I think so, especially in the career I've been in and the jobs previously, sometimes in the past it's been like rewarded that you're working overtime or you're working so much, and that's rewarded. And you know, as I've gotten older and through my different jobs, you realize, like, no, there shouldn't be rewarding. It shouldn't be something to be proud of, because I know when I was an assistant, I was like working like 14 hours a day, and I was like, yeah, I just work 14 hours a day, like, you know, praise me, you know, give me that promotion now or whatever. And it's actually something like, no, that should not be praised, and it should not be the norm anymore. Like, it should be, if you can't get whatever that is, okay, fine, we all work a little bit overtime now and again, but not, it shouldn't be all the time, like 7 till 7 every day if you haven't got that shift pattern job. And it's something that it's really interesting how the trends are changing now, especially in corporate environments, that like corporations are now saying, no, you need to take time for yourself, like go home at 6 or whatever it is, you know, switch off. And I know it's really hard, especially now we're all working from home. I guess everyone can really relate to constantly being on their laptops. Now I'm guilty for it, you know, being on the sofa and you're like eating dinner and you're like, oh, I'll just look at that email, it's just there. So I think it's really hard, isn't it, at the moment, to really channel that.
It's a lot harder to switch off. I'd say in the science that I work with, and one thing that we've seen gradually over time is that level of we call it burnout, but it's basically a lack of energy and innovation, being able to kind of think creatively, has steadily gone up over the last sort of 20 years or so. And that does seem to be in line with the fact that technology is more accessible and it's so much easier to be on, be at work. So it is a trend, and it's not a good trend.
No, it's not. And no matter how much people think, oh, I'm getting loads of stuff done, no.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think a lot of it is down to the management. So I've worked in places, I worked in a job, hopefully none of my old colleagues are listening because they'll know where it is, where you were sort of expected to be in, and you were expected to be at your desk for such a long time, and it almost didn't matter if you weren't working. It was the fact that you were there, it was the presence, and it almost became an environment where it was cool to be busy. And to be able to say, oh, I'm so busy, was like, oh, wow, that person must be working really hard. And it wasn't right. And actually, if you ever had to leave early, they would almost like sneak so that they couldn't be seen by the MD who was sat in a glass office. And they would just sneak around because you didn't want to be seen to be leaving the office. And I think, hopefully a lot of company cultures have realized that doesn't work, and that you don't get the most out of your staff by doing that. And I think anyone who has a boss that has recognized that, might not have had something as dramatic as Ariana Huffington, but has recognized, oh, I get more from my people when I give them, you know, when I don't bother them at the weekend, and when I do make sure that they take the time for themselves, they come in fresher, you know, they're more energized to work, they're more creative in their thinking. It makes a big difference, definitely.
That's a difference, because there's so many like tests now, isn't it? Like loads of corporations are saying, oh, do we just work 4 days a week a little bit longer and then give you 3 days off? You know, there's that conversation at the moment. It's like, especially now, a year at working from home, there's been loads of questionnaires going out in corporations, like, you know, would you prefer to work X amount of days, or, you know, how many days from work home do you want, or if you have children, you know, what's that flexibility like? And I think that all those factors really make a difference with the stress and work related. I mean, burnout doesn't necessarily always have to be related to work, though. Let's just mention that.
And the fact that you just picked up on it because you said about parents as well,
it's just clicked. It doesn't always have to be about work.
And because how I like to think of it, instead of saying work-life balance, I try and think of it as external energy versus internal energy. And external doesn't necessarily mean work. It can be work, or if you don't work, or maybe you work and you have children, or maybe you look after your parents or your grandparents or something else. So if you think of it more like that, how much of my energy is going externally versus how much of my energy is coming internally, then that can sometimes help people that may have more than just work as their obligations. But very often it's like all going outwards, and then you think, oh, but I do this for me, and then you think, well, actually I don't, I do that for my partner, or I do that for my kids, and yet it's for me too, but is it really for you?
Yeah. For sure. I mean, how, with that example, how would you differentiate if are there any things that could be confused as internal and external? Like how are they definite that's an external feeling and that's an internal one? What are the difference? How can you differentiate?
Ooh, it's quite a big, so obviously obvious external is work, obvious, even your work that you might do for yourself, like a side project, can sometimes start as something internal and then it becomes work. It starts to feel like work. Anything that you do, you know, I think the thing to think about is, what do you do that is purely for you, that fills you up, that doesn't have any sort of external validation or achievement or goal. I mean, it might have in the sense of, I don't know, if you like to run, then maybe you have a goal around running, but you don't start to see running as work.
Yeah.
A task is probably the best way to say it. Or if you like to do something like, maybe you like to paint or draw, if you are doing it for you, as long as it doesn't get to a stage where you think, oh, I have to do this today, because then it's crossed over.
Right. Yeah. Right. So as soon as it becomes that burden or something that, like a chore or something, then that's the difference.
Yeah. It's about what will give you that time and energy back into yourself. That will fill you up. I actually had a woman that I did a workshop with the company. We talked all about this, and then a few weeks later I went back in and we were talking. This really hit her, because she said, I don't do anything for myself, like nothing. Everything is for either work or my family, and she came back a few weeks later and she said, I've taken up golf.
Amazing.
Okay. And she said, because when I'm on that golf course, she said, the nature is for me. The phone is in the locker. No one can get hold of me. And it is purely my time and my time only. No one else gets anything out of it. It's all for me. And I thought, oh, wow, that's such an interesting take on it.
Yeah, that is. And locking your phone away, like, that is one that I would probably take away with, because this morning I did a yoga, I have an app on my phone that I pay and do classes with, and I then wanted to do a meditation session afterwards, and I did it and it was fine. However, forgot to turn off like any notification, phone calls, texts, and you're like, this is actually it's my time. But I feel like it's then, if you're on your phone, you're constantly getting that interruption sometimes, isn't it? And it's that line of, guys, let me have my time.
How can you protect your energy? And definitely.
Yeah, it's the energy you want to charge.
I think a lot of people might listen to this and think, oh yeah, and they might not have linked that to being burnt out.
Yeah.
It's maybe reverse it and think about maybe a day, when people say, oh, I've been to the spa. I know we can't do that right now, but I've been to the spa and now I'm so refreshed. Why is it that you feel refreshed? Because you've literally dedicated time for yourself. You put your phone away. There's a really interesting book that you made me think of when you were talking about the 4-day work week. So there's an author called Alex Pang. I can always, when you post this, I can always put it into the comments in case anybody wants to
definitely do that.
I don't know if it's released yet, but he's been doing a lot of research into the 4-day work week. But his first book is a book called Rest. I read it on holiday, perfect place to read it. And it was all about how when you do switch off, you are freeing up your mind for creative thoughts. And that's why, do you ever sit watching a film perhaps and you're going, what else was that actor in? Oh, he was in something. Let's say you didn't Google. I know we all Google now, but you think of something, and then an hour later or a day later, you're doing something completely different, and you go, I remember the answer. And that is because your subconscious brain is actually still working and processing and thinking about things. And when your brain is in that calm place, that's when it can tap in. And he wrote such an interesting book about the benefits of taking that time out for yourself, and how that actually can help you solve problems. Or, you know, you'll be walking down the road and you'll think, oh, that's how I should approach this, or that's how I should solve this work issue. Because you're letting your brain take that time out and subconsciously process. Yeah,
I think that's a really good example to say on, like, oh, who's that actor, and then the next day, because that happens all the time, and you're actually thinking, oh god, actually that is your subconscious still working. So if you think about it, you're like constantly busy at work, then your subconscious is like running away with itself. And I think that if you think, no, you need to get your brain into that slow motion and just kind of set back and think for yourself, that's a really good example, because it's made me visualize actually what is happening when you're nearing that burnt out phase. It's actually your brain is working overdrive on all these things that you might not even be aware of. I think that's it, isn't it?
That's why sometimes when you're on holiday, I don't know about you, but I always have really good business ideas when I'm on holiday. Awesome. And I come back thinking, oh, I can't believe I never thought of that before. And because I've given myself that time out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fascinating.
It's a good book, very readable, really good examples in there. So yeah, I recommend that.
Definitely post it in the comments and share it. I think a lot of people would want to have that. I'll just open the comments just in case anyone has said anything.
Got some wave.
Just lots of waving. I mean, I'll put it out to guys that are watching. If you have any comments, do just pop them in there, just in case we haven't covered anything that you may want us to cover. I guess it's no.
I feel like we've been on it. We've powered through.
We've really powered through. I mean, it's been incredibly insightful, and it's made me realise actually, or maybe visualise exactly what burnout is, and how important it is to spot the signs.
That it doesn't need to be this big dramatic, you know, I'm off sick, I can't work. The subtle things that can get in the way of you performing at your best can make a real difference. And how can you sort of catch them? How can you be conscious of, oh, hang on, I'm heading in this direction, I need to bring myself back, and what do I do to do that? And that is that contradiction of, oh, I should do nothing.
Oh, so Sophie, top tips for trying to take a break mentally from work when working from home.
This is interesting because I ran a workshop this morning, and this was one of the questions that got asked. Okay, so I think firstly, you some of these things are going to sound so obvious, but you have to plan time in your day, and that can be you know, your lunch break. It can be working in time where you can literally close your laptop and step away, because you probably would do that if you were in the office. Or you even have those moments where you would turn to a colleague, or someone would come and go, can I just talk to you about something, or how was your weekend? So how do you kind of work those into your day when you're at home? Something that a lot of people do is something called the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
You can, if you Google it, you can sometimes get an app that you can put on your phone or on your laptop, and it basically sets your time in 45-minute chunks.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I've heard of this. Yeah,
you can just set a timer on your phone, but I think people like it. I think it comes like a tomato. Pomodoro must be a tomato, and you you set it for 45 minutes, and then that 15 minutes, that's your break. You have to step away, even if you come back, you have to step away at that point, and that can be quite useful. I also think as well, when I'm on my lunch break, I'll try and either put some music or a podcast on, so that it's taking me away from work. And again, at the end of the day, doing the same thing. So putting a podcast on or putting some music on can help give you that almost like clean break.
That train journey home almost, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, loads of people listen to music or podcasts when they're on their commute. So it's doing the same thing for your brain. And yeah, work might still be ticking around in your mind, but it's just starting to clear your energy.
You've now turned into the evening. You're putting your energy into yourself now, and work's kind of turned off. You know, you need to just start looking after yourself.
Definitely.
Great tip.
Yeah, I mean, the other tips are also obvious, like trying to get some fresh air, you know, all of the sorts of,
yeah. I always find, I mean, I know us two are very kind of active anyway, we like training and things like that, but for those who don't enjoy training all the time, even just starting your day with a slight stretch or go for a simple walk or something can really help you start your day strong as well, and start to think, okay, before 9 o'clock or whatever time you start work, at least you've ticked off something that's for you, and then your day has started really, really strong. Because I know I do like a lot of people call it miracle morning and things like that, and those are really powerful for looking at you and inside and looking after yourself before you start any type of task for anybody else. Or the 5 a.m. club's a really popular book. Don't know if you've heard of that one.
It's not for me though.
It's not for you.
I can do like 6 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what I did the night before, let's be honest. But actually, I think, okay, 5 a.m, very, very early. And when I was teaching spin, that's the time I would like get up. And, you know, after like a day or two afterwards, you're absolutely exhausted. But there's nothing better than there's something about the early morning before everyone wakes up and you've been really productive. There's something about it. There's something there. And I think it's really like, oh God, I've done something for me before anyone else really has gotten up. And it's quite an achievement, I think. Or maybe turn it to the 6 a.m. club. 6:30 a.m. club. Let's do that. But I think there's something in there before you start, you know, putting yourself, like what we were saying earlier, before you start work, maybe not start work at that early time, and take that time for you and look inside and take that energy in before you push that energy out.
Yeah, I agree. Even for me, I like to do things like, I don't know, do a bit of, I like being in the kitchen, so that for me can help me unwind as well. And I think you can't say one thing is going to be the best thing for everyone, but it's finding what's gonna work for you. I think also doing things like putting your notifications off during the working day as well, so that you can focus on your work. Then when you do take that 15 minutes or that lunch break, then you're almost breaking up that time from work and social as well, and then maybe you can check in with friends or do something like that, send someone a voice note. That was one of my Blue Monday tips today, and I actually did voice notes as well.
Was it good? I haven't sent one yet. I need to send one. Oh no, that's really good. I mean, yeah, do you reckon there's anything else that we need to share? I think we've covered so much.
Yeah, it's actually gone really quickly, and I can't see what the time is either, so I don't know. On my phone, it's just the whole screen.
Yeah, it's just gone 6:30. Maybe it's 6:35. So yeah, pretty powered through it. Yeah. If anyone that's watching or thinks of a question or anything afterwards, either get in touch with myself, or I'll share Sophie's Instagram handle, and obviously FidlLeaf as well, so you can ask Sophie any questions that you may have, or follow the journey over on her page, and yeah, start getting tapped into your own energy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just think about what is going out versus what is coming in. Think of it like a battery or like an energy channel, and trust in the fact that the more you put into yourself, the more you will get out of not just work but life as well. People will get the best out of you if you put that energy into yourself, and that's my biggest tip.
Totally. And it's not selfish.
No,
it's not selfish. So yeah, take that away with you.
Fab.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Sophie. It's been really insightful, actually. It's been lovely.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, really good to chat, and good luck with all of your launch. It's so exciting.
Thanks. Yes, it's a very exciting time. Yeah. So I'm sure it will all kick off more, but yeah. Great. Well, have a nice evening, and everyone that's watching as well, have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.